I'm Jules. I am a Canadian who has about 5 years of cannabis industry experience, and I am here in the Byron Bay hinterland, Australia, showing you how to make your own infused cannabis gummy bears today. So today we're going to be infusing our gummy bears with a cannabis infused MCT oil. Now, we made this in a previous video. If you would like to know how to make that, you can check back to our other videos and find out how to there. So the reason why we are making it with our MCT oil today is because of the little to no taste that MCT oil has, and it offers the gummies a really great consistency as well. So the equipment and ingredients that you'll need for this process are a cup or bowl of just some warm water. You'll want your double boiler here. It can be kind of any size. We're using a smaller one because we're doing smaller batches by color. Then you'll also want a spatula for scraping it out. You'll want your bear molds. You can use any sort of gummy molds you want, but the size of them will also change the dosing of your final product. So keep that in mind. Other ingredients and equipment you need is just a gummy bear dropper, a tablespoon. You'll want your gummy bears assorted by color or whatever gummies you're using. We are doing batches of about 28 gummy bears. And you'll want your food coloring and your infused MCT oil. All right, so our first step is to preheat our double boiler. So you will just want to take this and fill it up halfway and put it on a medium to low heat on the stove. Now, once that's preheating, you can start to add your ingredients for the meltdown. So you'll take your 28 gummy bears and you'll just throw them there. All right, so once you've put your gummies into the double boiler to melt them down, you can grab your infused oil and your tablespoon. And for this recipe, we're gonna do 4 tablespoons of oil. Now this can be played around with depending on how strong you want, but since it doesn't have much of a taste, you can add a little bit more and still come out with a great tasting product. So we'll add our 4 tablespoons here. Awesome. Once you've added your oil, then you can grab your water to add in. 2 tablespoons, but it will change the consistency. So if you like them a little bit more soft and chewy, you can put a little bit more in, but it does help with the emulsification process. So you'll just put your 2 tablespoons in here. And one thing to note also is that the heating of the gummies will result in a little bit of moisture loss, so the water will burn off a little bit throughout the process, so the consistency might change throughout the process when you're filling the molds. This can just be fixed by adding a few drops of water every row of bears or when you start to see the consistency gum up a little bit. So now we have most of the ingredients together. Those will start melting down, and your last ingredient will be your food coloring with your dropper. Flavorings are very concentrated and strong, so you'll just want to add a few drops at a time just to make sure you've reached your desired color. So I'll just take the bear mold droppers here and just add a few drops in to the pot. Okay, so now we just wait for this to melt down, and once you start to see it melt down, you'll want to just keep stirring to enhance the emulsification. All right, so now that I've added all my ingredients and they are melted down, I am just giving them a really good stir to homogenize the whole mixture. The ingredients in this mixture do tend to separate quite a bit, so you want to mix, 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 and when you think you've done your mixing, mix some more. or else what will happen is when you fill them in the molds, you'll end up with 2 different layers of oils and gummy, which you don't want. So to homogenize it completely, you just stir, stir, stir until when you put it into your spoon or play around with your whisk, it doesn't show any sort of separation. So now this is completely stirred down, or melted down and homogenized. So now we will go and begin to fill the molds. So just move that over there. Now normally I would keep this on heat, but for video purposes I'm just going to bring it over here. But if the mixture does cool down, which it does quite quickly, it'll start to get really gooey and might gung up your dropper here. So to avoid that, keep it on heat if you can, and if not, make sure you're always stirring it and keep it as warm as you can during the process. So this mixture with 28 bears and everything added to it, the bears were a little bit bigger than these molds, so you'll come out with probably 50 to 60 depending on how much other ingredients you've added. And we can start filling the molds. So you just want to take a little bit at a time or else it just sticks in your dropper, and you'll just fill each mold. You don't want to fill it up too much, just to the baseline there, and repeat with each row until all of your mixture is in the molds. Alright, so as we're filling the molds, some of the water in the mixture will evaporate, so your mixture might get a little bit thicker in consistency. And to fix this, you just want to take your dropper and just take a couple drops of water and add it back in. And that should help with the consistency a little bit. You'll want to make sure that is all homogenized again before you start filling the molds. And once you've stirred it all, then you can continue. You can do this incrementally until the end of the batch. However, just keep note how much you're putting in because you don't want to change the dosage consistency of the bears. All right, that's probably good. And then I'll just have to fill these up. Okay, so we're just filling the last of the mold here. And once you've filled all the molds you'd like, you want to set the gummies. So by setting them, you can just put them in the fridge. I find overnight is a really great way to do it. And once they've set, you can take it out, and sometimes they will get really sticky and all gunk together, but if you just coat them with a light sugar coating, or if you mix citric acid and sugar for a little bit of sour taste, that'll prevent them from sticking. Storage wise, you can keep them in the fridge or the freezer. That'll keep the consistency the best. If you do keep them out, make sure it is below 20 to 25 degrees, just because if they get warm, they will melt and make a giant puddle wherever you've stored them. All right, so to store your gummies in the fridge, a really easy and safe way to store them is you want to put them on something hard like a plate. This is to prevent them from spilling everywhere because they will be in a little bit of a liquid state form until they've set. So you can just put it under the counter here, put it on the plate, and it's ready to go in the fridge. I usually store them for about 24 hours or just overnight, and that allows them to have a good time to set. Well done. Okay. Okay, so my gummies have set overnight now, and they are ready to be taken out of their molds. These were just in the fridge overnight, and I can still see that they're a little bit sticky and they might be a little bit hard to get out of the mold. If that's the case, you can throw it in the freezer for an hour or two, and that should harden them up and make it very easy to pop out of the molds. So you just want to pop them out like this. And you just want to do that with the rest of the mold there. And once you're done, you can just shake them in a little bit of sugar or a mix of sugar and citric acid if you want anything a little bit sour. and they are ready to be served. I usually store them in the fridge. It just keeps the consistency really nice. And what I've done is I've repeated the step with a few different colors of gummy bears. Each gummy bear color has a little bit of a different dose. You can make them however you want. You can make them all the same dose or play around with it a little bit. But just a little bit of a warning if you're making edible cannabis products and eating them, just to be careful about the dosage and your tolerance. So a good motto to go with is just start low, go slow, and go from there. So once you've taken out all your bears from your molds, you can just toss them in some sugar and a little mix of citric acid if you want something a bit sour. So I've repeated this step with all the different colors of gummy bears that I bought. Each gummy bear color I've made a little bit of a different dose, so you can do that. You can play around with the dosages if you want or make them all the same, but just a little bit of warning for those who make and eat cannabis gummies. Depending on your tolerance, you just want to figure out what's right for you, so you just want to start low and go slow. The problem with these is that they're extremely delicious and they're easy to eat a large number of them, so if you're that kind of person, just be very careful with how you dose them and medicate accordingly. That one was good, that one was better.